Today, an incredible turn of events happened, and it was announced on Church Militant's website. An email announcement was sent to donors as well. Church Militant has settled the Father de Laire lawsuit and issued a public apology to Father de Laire. What Church Militant didn't offer is the amount of the settlement. Hold on to your seat, folks, as I bring in Christine Chrislieb to discuss the details of the settlement and what happens to Church Militant now. Christine, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, here we are again. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Christine.
Nice to talk to you too. And, you have spent hours on hours delving into all of the legal actions that have taken place in this de Laire lawsuit. You're probably one of the most informed people that I know of on the de Laire lawsuit. And some things happened prior to today's announcement. So, Christine, when you're ready to get into the Church Militant document, let me know. But first, I want to read the apology that Church Militant issued today. So I want to screen share it off for everyone. In case you didn't see this was on Church Militant's website, and they also tweeted it today. And it says, on January 17th, 2019, and thereafter, St. Michael's Media published on its Church Militant website a story on its churchmilitant.com website about Father George de Laire, the judicial vicar of the Diocese of Manchester, New Hampshire. The story was authored by Mark Ballesteri, who requested that his authorship be concealed and led SMM, St. Michael's Media, to believe that the claims in his article were supported by anonymous sources known to him. SMM and Church Militant extend their apologies to Father de Laire for the publication of this story, which has been permanently removed from the churchmilitant.com website. Additionally, we have resolved Father de Laire's defamation lawsuit through a financial payment to him. SMM and Church Militant regret that the article was not properly vetted. It was later revealed that Mr. Ballesteri could not substantiate his claims regarding Father de Laire with any credible sources. Further, Mr. Ballesteri did not disclose to SMM his active involvement in a canonical dispute in which he was representing a client, and Father de Laire was representing the church at the time he wrote the article, which would have raised questions about the motive behind the anonymous allegations in the article prior to its publication. Mr. Ballesteri, after being sued, got to take a drink, folks. Mr. Ballesteri, after being sued, did not defend the lawsuit, leading the court to enter a default judgment against him. Mr. Ballesteri further failed to attend his duly noticed and agreed upon deposition. SMM sincerely apologizes for their part in any distress or damage they may have caused Father de Laire. All right, keep in mind, folks, this has been going on since 2019. Mm-hmm. What is your reaction, Christine?
I'm really thinking a lot about Ballesteri. On the one hand, I sort of feel like, oh my gosh, they really threw him under the bus. They really make it seem like, he withheld the fact that he withheld the fact that he didn't have any sources to back up what he was saying. It says, that he didn't show up for his deposition. It doesn't mention the fact, that, for example, that Michael threatened him, that he would
Mhm.
rain down on him publicly. So I would love to hear Balistreri's side of the story. I'm not sure why. It would be very interesting to know exactly what happened in that regard. And notice they say he was fleeing the court.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what that means, especially if he's being threatened. So anyway, those are my initial thoughts about it. It seems to be all about, well, it was all Balistreri, and not so much us.
That's exactly what I was gonna, point out too. It was pointing fingers again, I thought. And I know you know this fact about Anita Carey. Can you talk about Anita Carey? Because she was another defendant that was listed on this lawsuit.
Yeah. Well, as we talked about, she really was in my opinion, and as a fellow reporter, I never, we were never at Church Militant at the same time, but we held the same position. And so she really was an innocent person in the whole thing. And if you look at the apology that she gave the court, it's almost it's very, very similar to this apology. But
And
of course,
tell the folks, Christine, when did Anita Carey come forward in the court and apologize to de Laire herself?
oh, I get you. Well, I'm not sure. So of course, she didn't. As far as I know, she didn't do it in person, but she did it in.
No, but the a part of the, court settlement, she had,
Yeah, that
she,
was fairly recent. I mean, I want to say it was
yeah,
in the last month. That
yes,
she got taken out of the mix, and so this might be a good time to just remind people that Father de Laire is suing. There are four. He's the plaintiff. Father de Laire is the plaintiff, and there are four defendants. Okay, the four defendants are Church Militant, St. Michael's Media, Michael Voris, Anita Carey, and Mark Balistreri. Those are the four. Okay, so Balistreri's out. He's already got a judgment against him. Anita Carey is out. She already submitted her apology. Now, St. Michael's Media, Church Militant is out. They've issued their apologies and they've paid their $500,000, which we'll get, I'm sure you'll get into.
yeah, folks, they paid $500,000 to
Mhm.
ballot or to, Father de Laire. That was the settlement, $500,000.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that when we get
Mhm.
into that document. So all that's left of the four defendants, only is everybody's out except for Michael Voris. He remains, and it's not clear what. And I'm guessing, just based on the court documents and that I read, and just like you and I remember when we observed that exchange between Michael Sherry and the judge and Father de Laire's lawyers. Remember, they were being very kind to
Very
Mike
kind.
Sherry, you know,
Yes.
very kind to Mike Sherry. I think that the court really sees the villain in this whole thing as, is Michael Voris and Mark Balistreri. Those two are the ones that I'm sure. Lord have mercy on Michael Voris in this. I have no idea how that's going to come out. Now, as you and I talked about, there's a hearing in chambers tomorrow morning at 11:30. I'm not. We don't know what that's about. we do know that Michael Voris just recently asked for a continuance. And so I'm guessing his trial, his part of the trial so far at this moment is still going forward.
It would appear to be true. And folks, just so you know, Christine reached out to the court a few days ago to see if there was a possibility to live stream the trial or be virtual on the trial. And they had told you no, right, Christine?
Right. Everybody's got to be there in person.
Yeah. So, over the last couple of weeks, as we had said in our last broadcast about the de Laire lawsuit, the day that we did the lawsuit, or the day that we did the live stream, there was a bunch of document dumps that day that we had not had a chance to go through. Part of that was Anita Carey's apology to Father de Laire, and graciously, Father de Laire accepted her apology and released her from the lawsuit. He didn't have to, but he did. And then
and she pays nothing. She pays
nothing. Yeah,
except her any legal fees that she had. Yeah.
And then after that, we found out that Michael Voris had asked for a continuance, which was the judge granted it, and it was pushed back to April, the first week in April. So, Christine, let's go into the document, okay?
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I crossed out of it. Give me a second, folks. Do you have it up?
No, I do, but I can't share it with you. I can resend it to you.
Would you?
Do that? Let's see.
Yeah. I can't believe I had it up and I don't know what I did to it. Let me check my history.
Should I send it through email or should I send it through text?
Send it through email.
Okay. All righty.
Sorry, folks. And while she's doing that, let me show you something else that came out today to all the donors. And that is, and I copied and pasted this because I did not want the person that sent this to me, their email address to be exposed. But it says, visit the Church Militant shop. The Church Militant store is shutting down, and so it's time for a Lenten liquidation sale. And it goes on, but the thing that caught my eye was we are not restocking.
Yeah.
And so this is what you call a
fire sale?
Liquidation, a fire sale. We're going out of business sale.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Okay. Did you send it?
Uh-huh.
All righty. There it is. Let me get into it. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah.
I promise I had it up, everyone. I don't know what I did. Okay. So let's take that down. So did anybody, if you would put in the comments, did anybody receive this email? Because it was sent out to the donors and everybody on their email list. So, this is a warning sign. Wouldn't you say, Christine?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'd be happy to tick off and allow me to just say that I mentioned this in my I just posted an article to Trust But Verify that on this topic, and so I mentioned the fact that, of course, we've heard from various sources that today was going to be the last day for Church Militant. We heard that from several sources. They haven't, as of around 6 o'clock tonight, they had not made that official. But there are a number of indicators that that's the case. And so one of them would be what you just mentioned, they're not restocking the store. Another one would be the fact that we know at least one person got laid off today. Today was his last day. And I'm guessing were potentially other people that today was their last day. So there's at least another round of layoffs. Then the other thing I point to is Joe Gallagher, who is a former Church Militant employee who was head of Church Militant Resistance, has started his own production company called Truth Army. And he just put out a fundraising appeal. Well, actually, he's trying to raise capital for his business. It's a private business called Truth Army. He's trying to raise capital to launch this business. And underneath his umbrella of Truth Army, he's producing 3 different programs. And several of them are with former Church Militant employees who so far have not been officially laid off that we know of. William Mahoney, Ryan Souls, let's see. Well, then, of course, the other production he's doing is Red Top Report with Joe Enders, he was already laid off. And then Joe is doing his own show. So they're doing 4. They're doing 4 productions. 2 of them are with employees that supposedly are still with Church Militant, but now they're apparently maybe they've got a side gig, with Truth Army. It's hard to know if maybe that side gig is permanent. It's just a transition. It's hard to know exactly what that is, but all of those factors, in my opinion, are indicators that the organization is shutting down.
It would appear that way. Thank you, Christine. Well, let's get to the law, the settlement, I should say.
Yeah.
And we'll show you.
As we were talking about, Christine, it's so rare that you actually get to see a settlement agreement.
Yes, it is.
Usually, it's all private and nobody wants to reveal how much was given and so on. But this one, we actually get to see it. So one thing I would point out is, so Christine, be sure and read for them the title of the document there, in bold, kind of right in the middle. The agreement is between whom? Oops. Oh no.
I keep getting kicked off of this thing. Okay, it says agreement for judgment as between plaintiff Very Reverend George de Laire and defendant St. Michael Media, aka Church Militant. It does not say Michael Voris.
So it's just between those two people, those 2 entities, so to speak.
Right. And up at the top where it says defendants, these were the original defendants in the lawsuit. These were the people being sued.
Yes.
Gary Michael Voris, Anita Carey, St. Michael's Media, aka Church Militant, and Mark Ballesteri. But the judgment says this is between the plaintiff and St. Michael's Media, aka Church Militant. Yeah. And so it goes on. It goes on to say that they have agreed, and a judgment shall enter for Father de Laire against St. Michael Media on the sole count of the first amended complaint for defamation in the amount of $500,000. Now, Christine, originally, why don't you remind the folks of what the original summary judgment was for?
Yeah, so when Christine and I were listening in to a hearing, we were remote, but we were able to listen in on a hearing with the judge and Mike Sherry and, Father de Laire and his lawyers. And Mike
And Michael
Sherry,
Voris.
oh, yeah, and Michael Voris, yeah. And Mike Sherry was, oh, the most we can give right now, is $200,000. If we had to give any more, we would have to close down immediately. And that's when, rightly, the Father de Laire's lawyers, the plaintiff's lawyers, were saying, well, you know what? We kind of need some proof about, what your budget is. We don't want to bankrupt you if we can avoid it. We're not trying to do that, but we do need to know what your budget is and what your income is and so on. And so
And
they
your
were,
operational expenses.
yes,
Your
and
day-to-day operational expenses, which they should have been prepared to show that when they came to the hearing, and the judge kind of scolded them for not being prepared.
yeah, and it's like, and again, it's back to, how loosey goosey and just sort of unprofessional things were at Church Militant, that, you weren't able to produce. You should be able to produce such a thing at the drop of a hat. Your financial people should be able to produce, maybe not, but certainly within 24 hours, you ought to be able to do that. So the fact that they are scrambling and needed, I can't remember what they say, Christine, they needed 2 weeks in order to produce that.
Yes.
So, I mean, which was remarkable. So, and then as it turns out, when he was saying, oh, we can only give $200,000. Well, as it turns out, they're actually giving $500,000. And let's remember, everyone, that's, for many of us, that's our dollars. Those were our dollars that we gave to Church Militant. So,
Yep.
that's, yeah. And they could have gotten out of this if all it took was for them to remove that story and give a public apology and pay $500,000. They could have done that months ago, years ago. And
well, back in 2019.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what's amazing about this, everyone. This goes back to 2019. And maybe had they done that, they just went ahead and made the apology. Okay, so Christine and I were talking about this, and I want to say this is speculation. So let me just preface with that. But I have to believe that Father de Laire went to Michael Voris and Church Militant to first talk to them about this before he filed a lawsuit.
Oh, sure he did.
Most reasonable people would do that, right, Christine?
Oh, sure. You could be, well, we don't know for sure. As you point out, we're speculating, but I'm sure, he called and said, you've got to take this down immediately. And Church Militant just dug in its heels,
Yes. So let's go on. The judgment shall declare as follows: on January 17th, 2019, and thereafter, St. Michael Media published on its Church Militant website a story on churchmilitant.com about Father de Laire.
And let me just point out here, basically, in this agreement, they're telling Church Militant what the apology needs to say. So what you're about to read is basically almost precisely what got published on the website.
That's right. And I was getting ready to say that this is actually, I'm not going to read it all because it's actually almost word for word the apology that Church Militant issued. The only thing Church Militant eliminated was the amount of the settlement. Once again, not being transparent.
Yep. Hoping nobody will go and look at the document.
Right. So I'm not going to go through it all because it really is almost verbatim with what they had put on their website. They just eliminated item 1, the $500,000. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not gleeful about this. So when I have a nervous laugh, that doesn't mean I'm happy about Church Militant having to pay $500,000. I'm angry, not as much as Christine. Christine is even angrier because this could have all been eliminated. Yeah. Jobs could have been saved. Life could have went on. I wouldn't need to be doing these videos if they just were transparent. So even down to the bitter end, they can't tell donors the truth.
Yeah. And allow me to make just one other comment about the agreement. So typically in these sort of cases, the plaintiff is going to ask not only for, a dollar settlement, but for their attorney's fees to be covered.
Good point.
And so in this settlement, they said, our Father de Laire said, we'll take care of our own attorney's fees and you take care of yours. Now let's take a moment and think about, so Church Militant not only had to pay $500,000, just boom, right off the top to Father de Laire, but they went through 4 rounds of lawyers over this, 5-year period. I have no idea what those legal fees might be, but those lawyers, at least for a time, were representing Voris, Carrie, and the organization. So, and there were often multiple lawyers working on behalf of them. The cost must have been, so I would guess, your basic lawyer, is going to be $200, $250, an hour at least. Somebody like de Laire's lawyers, those people are getting $600 an hour, So anyway, I just want to mention that.
Thank you. The other part of this, which in my opinion is a generosity by Father de Laire again, Church Militant isn't required to pay his attorney fees.
Yeah. That is part of what, I was wanting to point out. I think, if Michael and the other good thing about them settling this is it will lessen the damage to Catholic news outlets generally, because if this goes to trial, for one thing, if Michael goes to trial, it's going to be just awful because they will tell everything there is to tell about him. They'll bring up every horrible thing, and it will all be public. So in my opinion, one thing we should pray for is that there can be some settlement so that there is not a trial.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that, Christine. Oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, well, when we were looking at some of the documents about instructions to the jury, so they were battling over whether they could talk about that Michael was, anti-homosexual, that he was anti-climate change, that he was, they were just going to paint a horrible picture. And of course, that would filter over into a lot of conservative Catholic media,
Yeah,
so
we're already being targeted as it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
the left referred to Church Militant as far right. I don't agree with that summation, but that's what they were called. And the Atlantic magazine did a pretty bad hit job on Church Militant. I want to say, what, a year ago, Christine? Or maybe it was longer than that.
I think it was longer than that.
Yeah, maybe 2 years ago when that happened. But, you know, I just keep circling back to the fact that had they come out right when the scandal happened with Michael Voris and just laid all the cards on the line and said, here, folks, this is what's happened. And we screwed up. And this is how we screwed up. Boy, it'd be a much better or much different outcome now. I don't know who was advising them, but the fact that they were just so tight-lipped and didn't want donors to know anything is what really, you know, what really, and plus all of the false statements that was made by other Catholic media companies that had no clue what was going on, or what was happening, but they acted like they did. And that was one of the reasons why I started doing these videos, is to set the stage correctly, because so much of what was being said wasn't true. But here's another disturbing part of it all. Not one Catholic media came out in support of Church Militant or was even willing, other than a statement of, you know, we should pray for Church Militant and Michael Voris. That was it. No support, no wagon circling.
And you know, you're actually more in touch with that than I am. So my impression is, no, I could be wrong about that. I've started to say, my impression was that there was sort of radio silence, you know, from most places. I think
most places didn't say a word.
Yeah, didn't report on it.
Nope.
Nothing, you know, just
nothing. Now, behind the scenes, I was getting all kinds of direct messages from some of those Catholic influencers asking me questions, and, you know, we're glad that this happened. And I don't mean glad in the sense that, you know, oh, stick it to Church Militant. I meant that they were relieved that Church Militant, the vision would stop, because there were so many attacks made on all other Catholic media companies by Michael Voris, because he felt like they weren't in the fight and they were not reporting on bishops and priests like they should. And he was trying to push that envelope that they would not push. And again, it became, everyone has to think the same way instead of having a diversity of opinion. I hate that word diversity too, because that implies you're a liberal and I'm not.
Well, you know, I mean, but there were, of course, I believe, certainly know one person. Hold on just a minute. I know one person who was saying, you know, and I agree with, I mean, you and I wouldn't have been there if we hadn't felt like that the messages that are the stories that Church Militant were covering were important. And I mentioned that only to say, so like, hold on just a minute. I just got a text from a friend in Erie, Pennsylvania, who keeps close tabs on the Buffalo Diocese. And in the Buffalo Diocese, they're about to sell like 800 properties. No, I'm sorry, 900 properties. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I've gotten this wrong. I'm trying to see this, and I don't have my glasses on. Okay,
first of all, say, they have 900 properties in Erie?
No, yeah, here. Okay, so first of all, the Diocese of Buffalo is in bankruptcy. Okay,
Yeah.
they have 900 sex abuse cases that they're trying to settle. And so now
Oh,
they have now there are 24 Buffalo Diocese properties for up for sale. Now, all of this is happening because, that's all happening because of the sex abuse scandal. It's huge. And it was absolutely legitimate to focus on it because you weren't going to find information about it anywhere else.
yeah, I agree with that. I do. I do. Uh, but as I have shared in another video, I was asked to write a story about a priest that I could not substantiate the information at all. And I told him I didn't want my name on it. And the person that took it over actually got pretty upset with me because I refused to write it. And the information was sketchy, and he went ahead and wrote the story.
Yeah.
So I,
Filled in the
you know,
blank.
yeah, fill in the blank. And that's where I kind of started stepping back and thinking through some things a little more about being there. But I mean, that was just one of many things. And I just always go back. And as you know, I have said this to you a million times, probably, that had I not resigned in March, I would have been laid off with you 8 months later.
Yeah.
I would have moved up there, which Indianapolis to Detroit wasn't going to cost a couple $100. It was going to cost $4,000 to $5,000 to
Mhm.
move. There were people that moved to Detroit to work for Church Militant that left all their possessions behind because they couldn't afford to move up there. So they moved up there with their car only.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they're laid off.
Yeah. I mean, it's Um, sort of another thing that's a little bit ironic or maybe a good sign, I don't know what to say, but under headlines today on Church Militant's website, the very last story is about Archbishop Alan Vigneron, who I guess rarely or during his tenure, he's only issued like 5 teaching documents. I'm not sure what the official language is for what you call those, but he just issued a very in-depth examination of Catholic teaching on the whole transgender thing. And so it's like good for him, I mean, it was really upholding, creating that balancing act between, people who are experiencing this, we need to have compassion and mercy for them, but we need to help them, embrace the identity that God has given them. Anyway,
Yes.
it sounded, like really great. And Church Militant was reporting on that. And so I was really happy to see that. It's too bad that there couldn't have been maybe a little more balance. But,
Well,
a lot
as
of
we
people,
have
of course,
said, as
a
as
lot
we
of
have
people,
said,
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say a lot of people, just are really seeing the church crumble. And of course, you don't want to downplay that. It is declining. I mean, there's no question about that. And you don't want to be a Pollyanna. Oh, well, look over here at this wonderful thing. You want to be, balanced. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it is sad. And had the board not made poor decision after poor decision once all of this came out in November. Remember, folks, it's all happened right before Thanksgiving. So it's been a
Mhm.
slow death, a slow death. It doesn't look good now that they're shutting down the store and everything else. But Christine, let's go to some comments. I'd like to get into some comments here. Okay. Hugh says hi. Hi, Hugh. He's always watching. Thank you, Hugh. Judy is another faithful. Their online store's closing. Everything is half off. Yes. Thank you, Judy. JM is another one that's always. Thank you, JM. You're faithful watcher too. Thank you for reporting on this situation, Christine and Christine. Trey says a lot of Mark B did. SMM may have. Yeah, exactly. We noticed the same thing, Trey. Hugh says, lots of money. Wow, a lot of money. It sure was.
Yeah.
$500,000 is nothing in comparison to the damage CM caused.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. They got off so because there were no punitive damages. I mean, if they'd gotten into that, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Well, and they got off from paying de Laire's attorney fees. Can you imagine what that cost would have been?
Yeah. And so now the settlement, $500,000, a third of that, of course, will go to the lawyers, but that's nothing. I mean, those lawyers have way more in that case than, whatever 30% would be. But yeah.
Okay. Why are the remaining employees still hanging in? CM is dead. Why are they trying to resurrect it? I'll let you answer that one, Christine.
Well, I think some of those guys, I mean, Joe Gallagher and the guys that are going over with him and his production company, Truth Army, they're just media people. They really enjoyed the production, the media, the discussion. I mentioned to someone when I was talking to him, none of them are doing news. They're doing like cultural commentary and theology and that sort of thing. But interestingly, nobody is doing news. Now, of course, when they're doing cultural commentary, they're they're leaping off the news. They're responding to things that are in the news. But as far as actually trying to report on the news, nobody's trying to do that. So I would just say, they're young. That's the other thing. Most of them are very young, under mid-30s and under at the oldest. And so that's just their, that's the water they swim in. Yeah. So I'm not surprised.
And what you all don't know is out of all the people that have been laid off, with all the layoffs, the 2 layoffs, Christine is the lone ex-employee left in Detroit. Most of them, if not all of them, have moved back to their hometowns.
Yeah. When Paul and Jennifer left a couple of weeks ago, that was really heart-wrenching for me. And then, Max Douglas has moved. Paul Morano and Jennifer.
Oh, yes, Paul Romano and his wife moved back. Yeah, moved away.
Max and his wife have moved, to Omaha, and so I'm kind of left here in Detroit, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Pat says, talk about mercy. Father was very gracious. He sure was gracious.
I think so. Yeah. Because
truth.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, read the comment. I'd much rather hear from them.
Okay. Thank God Anita has been freed from this situation. I hope she explains the forces at work that pushed her into and influenced her to do it.
She did. In her, in that settlement agreement, it talked about, it sort of removed responsibility from her, but nevertheless, she did still go ahead and apologize for, the whole situation. So I am impressed with, I am impressed with Father de Laire. I'm, it was a very bad thing that happened to him. And so, and he just happened to have the resources to pursue this to the very end. And in doing so, he has helped reveal a lot of things. And so, in a way, we should all be grateful to him, in a sense, for what his resources have allowed him to do.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Sister Anna Marie says, I might have gotten it, but I deleted their emails. Okay, on the show or on the store being 50% off. Fire sale.
Yeah.
Robert Wright, do you think it'll be days, weeks, or months before CM are off the air?
Well, Christine, tell him what you thought.
I thought that it would be over March 1st. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I was projecting April 1st. So, I mean, we don't think it will certainly not be months, I don't think.
And Christina and I talked about this back in January, and because we were seeing that they were being stubborn about, and it was almost prideful too, that they were begging for money all the time, but they wouldn't tell the donors the truth. And they go on this retreat at sea. No idea how many people showed up for that, but they did it. They fired YG Nightstorm, the person that they had hired as an executive director. It wasn't even a month later that they fire him. He was supposed to be on the retreat at the sea as one of the speakers, as we showed in the last broadcast. So they got rid of him, and just all of that just didn't add up. It just showed one bad decision after another.
Yeah, and isn't it too bad that that within the organization there wasn't anyone who they felt they could raise up to oversee the whole thing. They had to bring in some. Now, I guess that's not so terrible. That's often done. You bring in somebody from the outside. But anyway,
Well, they had no one. They had no one on the outside except for one person on the board. So that was a really bad decision. All right. So HCAB says, please, not another Catholic media show. Please, no. Haven't we learned anything yet? Okay. And then Pat asks, so what happened to Ballesteri? I'm not clear on the judgment. All right. I'll let you take that one, Christine.
Yeah. Can we go back to the document?
Sure.
Because that document sets out at least what Church Militant's position and St. Michael's media position. First of all, they said he wrote the article. They're claiming he wrote the article. And of course, that was the big dispute. Who wrote the article?
It was, and we didn't know this until this agreement judgment. Correct, Christine?
That's right. Now let me clarify. There were two articles. The first one is the one in question. Like, who wrote that? Because the second one is the one Anita Carey wrote. Okay. But there was no dispute about that. Her name was right on it. But the first one was published under the name Church Militant. And so there was a question. Well, did Ballesteri write it? Did Michael Voris write it? Did they collaborate on it? Exactly. So now what they're saying is Ballesteri wrote it. Okay. And then they're saying that he demanded that it was done anonymously. And apparently he had done that before. He was writing under this kind of anonymous thing, or else I think he sometimes used a pen name. And remember, this guy is a canon lawyer.
Well, and also remember, Christine, on the 990, it showed him as an employee, and they had paid him $64,000. Ballesteri.
Yeah. Yeah. So all told, so if you add that $65,000 into and add it to the $500,000 that they just paid, now we're at $600,000 that story cost Church Militant and the donors. Okay, what else does it say there, Christine?
It says the story was authored by Mark Ballesteri, who requested that his authorship be concealed and led SMM to believe that the claims in his article were supported by anonymous sources known to him. CMM and Church Militant extend their apologies to Father de Laire for the publication of this story, which has been permanently removed from the churchmilitant.com website. Additionally, we have resolved Father de Laire's defamation lawsuit through a financial payment to him. And that financial payment, for those of you that have gotten on late, that financial payment was $500,000.
Okay,
and it goes
so
on to say, St. Michael Media and Church Militant regret that the article was not properly vetted. It was later revealed that Mark Ballesteri could not substantiate his claims regarding Father de Laire with any credible sources.
Yeah, so let me just say something there. So that means that this person wrote all those things about Father de Laire, and he claimed that he had sources to back up these claims. The claims that Father de Laire had mental health problems, that he was considered a problem by the Vatican, that, just all kinds of ugly things about him. And that Ballesteri, I guess what this is suggesting is that he represented to Church Militant that he had sources for all that, and he didn't.
Well, let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
So, if Ballesteri said he had sources to back this up, couldn't Michael Voris have said, or the editor that was, assigned to this, wouldn't the editor or Michael Voris be able to say to Ballesteri,
who
from one reporter to another, who are your sources?
Sure. I guess they trusted him. They trusted him, and so I guess they just didn't ask.
Yeah, my question is, that wouldn't be unethical to ask someone that. I mean, that would be vetting their source.
Well, no, I think, no, you can even withhold your sources from your editor. Okay. But you would have to reassure your editor that you have sources and that you have the notes and yada, yada, yada. But I think you wouldn't I don't think, they ever revealed who Deep Throat was, for example, and not even to the editor. Nobody knew who that was.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clear up. And it goes down at the bottom. It says that Ballesteri didn't disclose to St. Michael Media his active involvement in a canonical dispute in which he was representing a client, and Father de Laire was representing the church at the time he wrote the article. And then it also says at the bottom, Mr. Ballesteri, after being sued, did not defend the lawsuit, leading the court to enter a default judgment against him. He further failed to attend his duly noticed and agreed upon deposition. And when he didn't show up for the deposition, that was, and Voris found out about it. That's when Voris threatened him because he was trying to get Ballesteri to be at the deposition.
I got the impression he was trying to get Ballesteri to not not
Oh, you're right. You're
yeah,
right. Yeah,
uh-huh,
to
yeah,
not go.
and oh, I just had a thought and it went away from me too. Oh, I wanted to make sure listeners understood that the story that was originally published was about this group, this kind of fringe group up in New Hampshire, a group of religious, okay, who had kind of gone off track toward this thing called Feeneyism. And so they were in dispute with the Vatican about, their status. And so the Vatican made a decision and said, no, you got to give up this Feeneyism. And Father de Laire was the individual who delivered that message. So, so Church Militant wrote a story about the fact that, oh, these poor servants of the so-and-so up here in New Hampshire, they're being persecuted for their beliefs, and this very mean Father de Laire is, disciplining them. And so it was in that context. And now here's the key part. Mark Balistreri was representing the religious group at the same time that he
That's
was
right.
writing the article. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that now. Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of pieces to this, folks.
Yeah. It was,
All right.
yeah. And of course,
There's
that
a
was
question.
an obvious conflict of interest.
Yeah. Pat asked, is Michael Voris still living in Houston? We don't think so. Don't know that for sure. And then Craig says, Joe Gallagher's still interested in buying the place, lots of broadcast equipment.
That may be why he is doing that give, send, go, asking for $35,000. It could be that he's wanting to use that to, purchase equipment that he somehow knows, is about to go into the fire sale.
Yeah. Okay. And then Nellie says, was the court case taped so we can watch later? No, it was a closed chamber meeting that Christine and I couldn't get on. And then if you were not on earlier, we had said that Christine had checked with the court to see if we could appear virtually and live stream it. And the court said, no, you have to be there in person. So none of that will be live stream if Voris ends up moving forward in the lawsuit. Let's see if there's any more questions because we're about running out of time. What is Feeneyism?
Oh, I don't know, but it's spelled Feenyism. So I'd Google it. It's
Okay.
some sort of off-brand Catholicism. I think it has something to do with the position that if you are not Catholic, you are going to hell. And so, of course, the Catholic Church does not hold that position because it allows for other kinds of situations that, allow people, to be with God. I am not a theologian. I am not the person to respond to that question, but they took an extreme position on that the Catholic Church does not hold.
Yeah. All right. Pat asked the question, does Michael Voris have a lawyer? The answer is no. He's representing himself.
Good question.
So, yeah, good question. He is representing himself. So there's that. Let's see. Is Milo involved in any of the downfall of Sam that you know of? No. Not that I'm aware of. Do you know anything, Christine? Milo's
No.
been another one that's been pretty silent about all of this. He put out right shortly after Voris and Christine Niles had put out their statements. Milo put out a statement on his Telegraph account and hasn't really said anything at all. I tried to get Milo to come on. He had agreed to talk to me, and then he wouldn't answer my phone, wouldn't answer my text. So I got the message, Milo. If you're listening, text me, call me.
No, I would say the only thing is, it was of course Michael's decision to bring Milo into to be a speaker when we were in Baltimore, and that's what triggered the lawsuit from the city of Baltimore. So that's what,
Yeah.
That would be the only thing I would say. And of course, that wasn't Milo's fault. That was
right.
Potentially a bad decision on Michael's fault to promote, to headline Milo. Although, Milo was a big name, though. Milo was a very big name, and his conversion, or his reversion back to Catholicism, was a source of a lot of joy and comfort to people. He had a very powerful testimony, very powerful,
and walking away from the gay lifestyle too, so that he could come back into the church, was huge. But Milo is a controversial figure. He even to this day, he is. Okay, so Eagles of the Sacred Heart says Feeney was excommunicated and his views are officially heresy. This occurred in 1953. Pius XII was on the throne, so no one can say Vatican II had anything to do with it. Okay. All right. Thank you, Eagle of the Sacred Heart. Okay, so any other questions? All right, folks, just to give you a heads up, tomorrow at 11 a.m., my interview with Father Nathan Castle will be live. And well, not live. We recorded it today at noon. And so it'll be up. You guys are really going to enjoy him. He is just such a delightful priest. Christine and I will keep you all informed. The story's not over yet, is it, Christine?
Oh, and if you don't mind, Christine, allow me to just mention that, if people are interested in, more of my perspective on this, they can look at the article I just published on Substack at Trust But Verify. So,
yeah, you guys be sure. I'm so glad you said that, Christine, because I'm going to pull it up so you guys can see it. Where is it, Christine?
It should be there. Let me make sure
it's not.
Well, let's see. Substack Trust.
Let me share screen here. You tell me where it's at.
Just Google it and then click on it.
This is what I'm seeing.
Okay, hold on. Let me go back.
Oh, here it is. No, that's November 29th.
Oops. Let's see. Where am I? Oops. Oh, no. Well, no. It's right there. It's over for Church Militant and Karamo. It's right there. Right at the
I don't
top.
see it.
No, right at the very top.
Oh, geez. Lordy, lordy, lordy. It was a snake and it bit me.
Yeah. Yeah. So this
So this is, go ahead, explain it, Christine. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. I mean, first of all, this is a commentary piece. It's not a hard news piece, and so it's about the convergence of two stories that I've been watching for the last year. One is, of course, about Church Militant, and the other is about the slow death of Christina Caramo, who was chair until just this week. Again, just this week, where she was chair of the Michigan Republican Party and was removed. So it's a very big deal in Michigan. Michigan's a very important state to the upcoming presidential election. I mean, we're a swing state, and here we are 8 months or so before the presidential election, and our chair got removed. And I was part of helping advise her about fundraising. And so I had sort of a front row seat on it, just the way I've had sort of a front row seat on Church Militant. So I talk about how those two stories converge.
I think you guys know, if you have subscribed to Christine Chrisleip's Substack, Christine is an excellent writer. And so this article, anything she produces is going to be good and worth your time to read. She doesn't print fluff. So I just want to encourage you to go over to her Substack at trustbutverify.com and read that article. And if you will subscribe, you'll get her articles in your inbox, so you don't have to keep going to her website. So be sure and subscribe, put your email in. You don't hear from her every day, once a week, and subscribe so you don't have to keep going over to her newsletter, to her Substack. So it's real easy. It just comes in your inbox. Highly recommended. There, I did my pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I get her news. I get it. So I'm telling you, I don't subscribe to everything, but hers I do, and I'm going to admit this in public, Christine. So you all know that I have a Savvy Sales Lady business where I do training and coaching. And I write a lot of articles and all kinds of stuff. I read Christine so that I get a better sense of how to write. I mean, that's one reason why I read you. It's like, oh, I didn't think about phrasing it that way. So she's really helped me when I write my articles by reading hers. So I appreciate that, Christine.
Yeah.
All righty. Let's see. Do we have one more question? Ken says something interesting here. I wouldn't say gleeful, but satisfied that justice is being done. CM has done good work, but the damage they've caused and the salacious approach, unfortunately, far outweigh it. So that is another perspective too. And the one thing before we close that Christine and I have talked about a lot is all of the employees that have been affected, not only the donors that have been affected, but all the employees that have been affected. If Church Militant does close its doors, just remember those employees' lives are being affected. And many people that were laid off in March of 2023 still have not gotten jobs.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
So, that's why I get angry, is because when you're contributing to nonprofits, and Christine and I have talked about this before, do your due diligence to see, are they, I don't want to say legitimate, but are they handling business as they should? And Church Militant oftentimes did not. Christine, do you want to comment more?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it was, March 31st, just about 11 months ago, when we were all laid off. And, just days after that, maybe within 72 hours, you and I were on your channel talking about this. And the point I have consistently made is that the problem at Church Militant was governance. If they'd had proper board governance, then a lot of this might have been avoided. And so 11 months ago, we were saying that, and we were sort of sounding the alarm, and they could have maybe, of course, they might have been able to pull through this, but yeah, they didn't.
No, they just kept making bad decisions.
And then of course, Michael put the nail in the coffin, by, apparently just not able to fully shed, his former life, I guess.
Yeah. S. Draper says, geez, I didn't get a notification there was a live stream. S. Draper, there will be the replay available if you go to the Eternal Life Plan YouTube channel under live stream or under live tab. You'll be able to see the replay there. So just go to the channel under live tab. You'll find the replay so you can see the whole thing. Appreciate that. So, yes, so let's remind everyone, this started with Christine Niles resigned. A week later, Church Militant came out and said that Michael violated the morality clause, didn't give any more information than that, and that they had accepted his resignation. The same day, Voris puts out a video on X explaining what happened, which he was very vague about. And then Christine Niles comes on after Voris and puts out an explanation as well. That was also vague. So, there was no transparency in what actually happened. Then the leaks started. The misinformation started. I put out my first video weeks after. I mean, I didn't jump on the bandwagon right away, did I, Christine? And
No,
and so then after that first video, I started getting emails after emails from former employees of Church Militant, finding out about all of these pictures that Michael Voris had texted to not only James Grind, says he texted it to him. He texted it to Hunter. He texted it to an NFL football player that was going to donate $1 million in ongoing payments to Church Militant. And that man pulled his donation because of Voris texting a half-naked picture of himself. Voris, texted the tweet of tweeted half-naked pictures to many people, and they were uploaded, probably unintentionally, to the company Dropbox, along with saved text messages that were erotic and sexual in nature.
And it might also be important to, I don't mean to prolong our discussion, but it might be important to realize that when he if it's true that he texted these half-naked pictures to James Grind, everyone needs to remember James Grind is a sex abuse victim, okay, who was abused, by Theodore McCarrick. So this is a person who's had a lot of confusion in his life, just a lot. And then
a lot of trauma.
Yeah. And so for Michael to do that is just very unfortunate. I mean, that's probably
And
a light way to say it.
yes, that's a nice way of saying it because, supposedly he said this is what guys do that work out in gyms. I don't know, guys. Do you all text, have naked
I mean,
pictures of
it's
yourself?
what bodybuilders do. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, if you're just, trying to stay fit, no.
And I also want to remind the viewers too that I had gotten 4 young men that came forward that I would not put on the air because I was trying to protect them, that had their own stories. And I did not want to put them on because their stories were so unique. Michael would have known exactly who they were. And I didn't want that. I didn't want them to come on and have to carry any kind of problems around that. But there was one underlying thing that I will repeat that they all said, and even Hunter Bradford's, who we're talking about, is that when you showed up at Michael's house in the summer, or I guess anytime, he often greeted his guests without a shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just don't know men that do that. I don't know any men that do that.
No. Well, unless somebody is just very, very proud of their physique, you know.
Well, that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I were talking about our dads. My dad never walked around the house without a shirt on. Never,
No, mine didn't either.
never.
My son doesn't do it.
Yeah, I
My
don't think
son
my
doesn't
son
do
does
it.
either. No.
Oh, you got a new subscriber. Ann says subscribe to Substack. Thanks.
Yay, thank you.
Woohoo! Thank you, Ann.
Yeah, thanks.
Good deal. Good deal. All right, everyone. We're running real late. We've never done one this long before. Christine, I so appreciate all the time. Folks, you have no idea how much time she has spent going into Pacer every day, looking at the documents and looking up what else has happened. You have no idea the time she has spent on this. And she's not getting paid on any of this.
No, I'm not.
Not getting paid a dime on any of this. None of us are. So just keep that in mind that, she has dedicated a large part of her day to keeping me informed about what was going on at Church Militant, because I was not, for the longest time, I had the heck of a time getting in the Pacer. Once I got that straightened out, yeah, I kept getting kicked out of it. It didn't like me.
Yeah,
So
it's not user friendly.
no, it's not. But I want to, with Christine on, I just want to say, God bless you all. Pray, pray, pray for all involved in Church Militant, Michael Voris, all the former employees. Please pray for them. Anita Carey, pray for Ballesteri. Thank God Father de Laire could have been a heck of it could have gotten really ugly, and he didn't. And thank God for that. And we will keep you informed if anything else happens, which we're sure it will. So remember, everyone, eternal life is forever. Got a plan? Bye-bye.
Bye.